Get ready for the dictation. Start. Whenever a statute comes up for consideration, it must be remembered that it is not within human power to foresee the manifold sets of facts which may arise, and even if it were, it is not possible to provide for them in terms free from all ambiguity. The English language is not an instrument of mathematical precision. Our literature would be much the poorer if it were. This is where the draftsmen of Acts of Parliament have often been unfairly criticized. A judge, believing himself to be fettered by the supposed rule that he must look to the language and nothing else, laments that the draftsmen have not provided for this or that, or have been guilty of some or other ambiguity. It would certainly save the judges trouble if Acts of Parliament were drafted with divine prescience and perfect clarity. In the absence of it, when a defect appears, a judge cannot simply fold his hands and blame the draftsman. He must set to work on the constructive task of finding the intention of Parliament, and he must do this not only from the language of the statute but also from a consideration of the social conditions which gave rise to it and of the mischief which it was passed to remedy, and then he must supplement the written word so as to give force and life to the intention of the legislature. That was clearly laid down by the resolution of the judges in Haddon's case, and it is the safest guide today. Good practical advice on the subject was given about the same time by Plowden. Put into homely metaphor, it is this: a judge should ask himself the question, if the makers of the act had themselves come across this ruck in the texture of it, how would they have straightened it out? He must then do as they would have done. A judge must not alter the material of which it is woven, but he can and should iron out the creases. In reply, learned counsel for the petitioner submitted that the respondent state has enacted law not in exercise of law making power under entry 5 of the state list, but in purported exercise of power under Article 243G. Therefore, the validity of the act has to be judged at the touchstone of the Article 243G and not at the touchstone of legislative competence under entry 5 of the state list of 7th schedule. We have heard the submissions of learned counsel Mr. Kant, senior advocate appearing on behalf of the petitioner, as well as Mr. Lalit Kishore, learned advocate general appearing on behalf of the state on the issue of constitutional validity of the amended act. The scheme of the Panchayati Raj was introduced by way of 73rd Amendment. Initially, in 1993, the Bihar Panchayati Raj Act was enacted in the light of the constitutional amendment and insertion of Part 9 of the Constitution. Earlier, Bihar Panchayati Raj Act 1947 was in operation. The said act was repealed by way of amendment in 1993, and 1993 Act was repealed by way of Bihar Panchayati Raj Act 2006. The issue so far amendment under the Bihar Panchayati Raj is concerned is within the competence of the state legislature. The apex court has the occasion to examine the principle of local self-government by way of 73rd Amendment of the Constitution of India in various judgments. Justice A.K. Ganguly in the case of Bhanumati and others versus State of Uttar Pradesh has succinctly enumerated the constitutional scheme of local self-government at grassroots level in the light of Constituent Assembly debates and other contemporaneous material, including the article of Granville Austin in his treatise in the Indian Constitution, Cornerstone of a Nation. The objective of the Panchayati Raj institution and background of 73rd Amendment as a tool of social engineering has been elaborately discussed in the said judgment of Bhanumati and others versus State of Uttar Pradesh and others, reported in 2010-12 Supreme Court cases 1 in paragraphs 13 to 27, which is as follows. The Constitution's quest for an inclusive governance voiced in the preamble is not consistent with Panchayat being treated merely as a unit of self-government and only as part of directive principle. If the relevant Constituent Assembly debates are perused, one finds that even that constitutional provision about Panchayat was inducted after strenuous efforts by some of the members. From the debates, we do not fail to discern a substantial difference of opinion between one set of members who wanted to finalize the constitution solely on the parliamentary model by totally ignoring the importance of Panchayat principles, and another group of members who wanted to mold our constitution on Gandhian principles of village panchayat. Stop.